Today is Tuesday, February 24th, 2026. The time is 7 p.m. Eastern. Welcome to Geopolitical Updates from AGI Era. In a stark revelation from the ongoing conflict in Eastern Europe, a report from the British Broadcasting Corporation has brought to light harrowing testimonies from Russian soldiers. These accounts detail instances of fellow troops being summarily executed on the direct orders of their commanders. 4 individuals, who have since deserted and are now on the run, provided chilling details of the brutality they witnessed on the front lines in Ukraine. Their statements describe a desperate environment where refusal to obey orders or even attempts to retreat could lead to immediate, fatal consequences. 2 of the interviewed soldiers explicitly stated they observed comrades being shot for declining to participate in assaults. This disturbing report offers a rare, unfiltered glimpse into the command structure and conditions facing personnel within the Russian military, raising profound questions about military discipline and human rights within the conflict zone. This narrative will be explored in greater depth later in our program, examining the strategic implications of such internal pressures on Moscow's war effort. Turning our attention to Ukraine, the nation today commemorated the 4th anniversary of Russia's full-scale invasion. Events were held across the country to remember the dead and reflect on the enduring conflict, which shows no immediate signs of abatement. President Zelenskyy, in an interview with the BBC, asserted that Russian President Putin has initiated a Third World War and must be halted. This solemn day underscores the prolonged human cost and geopolitical instability generated by the conflict, as a genuine ceasefire remains elusive. In a separate development, Hong Kong has lodged a strong protest after Panama moved to take control of key canal ports. This diplomatic spat follows Panama's Supreme Court decision last month to cancel the contracts of a Hong Kong-based firm which had been operating the critical port facilities. This move signals a significant shift in control over a vital global shipping artery, potentially impacting international trade flows and port operations in the region. The financial implications for the affected Hong Kong entity and broader trade relations remain under close observation. Moving to the Middle East, the U.S. State Department has partially evacuated its embassy in Beirut, ordering non-essential staff to leave. This decision follows a security review amid rising tensions with Iran. The precautionary measure highlights escalating regional instability, particularly concerning the potential for increased friction between the United States and Iranian-backed groups in Lebanon. Such diplomatic shifts often precede heightened security alerts and indicate a perceived elevated risk to personnel and operations in the area. Meanwhile, Mexico is actively hunting for 23 inmates who escaped from a jail in Puerto Vallarta. The breakout occurred after armed individuals rammed one of the gates, facilitating the mass escape. This incident is part of a broader wave of violence sweeping across several Mexican states, particularly following the recent killing of Nemesio El Mencho Oseguera, a prominent cartel leader. The ongoing unrest and cartel activities continue to pose significant challenges to internal security and stability within Mexico. On the trade front, former U.S. President Trump issued a warning to countries that he believes play games with existing trade agreements. His remarks come in the wake of a Supreme Court ruling last Friday, which determined that he had exceeded his authority in enacting a comprehensive global program of tariffs during his previous term. The former president's statement suggests a potential reevaluation or aggressive enforcement of trade policies if he were to return to office, impacting global trade dynamics and economic partnerships. Finally, in European political news, Jetten has been sworn in as the Netherlands' youngest-ever prime minister. The 38-year-old's inauguration follows his narrow victory in October's general election. His ascent to leadership marks a generational shift in Dutch politics and will see him navigate pressing domestic and international challenges for the EU member state. The BBC's recent report detailing the execution of Russian soldiers by their own commanders represents a critical insight into the internal dynamics of Moscow's military operations in Ukraine. This goes beyond mere battlefield casualties, pointing to systemic command failures and a brutal enforcement of discipline that echoes historical accounts of military purges. The narrative presented by the four defectors, two of whom explicitly witnessed these summary executions, paints a grim picture of a military under immense pressure, where the fear of friendly fire or command-sanctioned killings might, in some instances, supersede the fear of the enemy. From a strategic perspective, such revelations carry profound implications for Russian military morale and cohesion. A fighting force where soldiers fear their own officers more than enemy combatants is inherently fragile. It can lead to a breakdown in trust, decreased combat effectiveness, and increased rates of desertion, as evidenced by the very individuals who came forward with these testimonies. The long-term psychological impact on those serving and even those considering enlistment could be significant, potentially hindering future recruitment efforts and the sustainability of a protracted war. This internal pressure could force Moscow into an untenable position, either requiring a brutal tightening of internal controls or facing a collapse of internal discipline. Economically, maintaining such a coercive military structure is resource-intensive and ultimately inefficient. High desertion rates, coupled with the need for internal enforcement and potential reprisals against families, divert resources from frontline operations. Furthermore, the international fallout from these reports will likely intensify calls for investigations into war crimes, potentially leading to further sanctions or increased diplomatic isolation for Russia. While the immediate economic consequences for the Russian state may not be direct and measurable in monetary terms, the erosion of international standing and the potential for new punitive measures could negatively impact its long-term financial stability and access to global markets. In terms of the balance of power, such extreme measures suggest a deeper structural problem within the Russian military, possibly indicating a struggle to maintain troop compliance and combat readiness through conventional means. This contrasts sharply with the narrative of a disciplined and motivated fighting force that Moscow projects. The internal fragility revealed by these accounts could embolden Ukraine and its Western allies, indicating a potential weakness that could be exploited through continued support for the Ukrainian resistance and sustained diplomatic pressure. It suggests that while Russia may possess significant material superiority in some areas, its human capital, specifically the morale and integrity of its ground forces, could be a critical vulnerability. Comparing this perspective with broader reporting, Western wire services like Reuters have often focused on tactical gains and losses or macro-level strategic movements. Reports from Al Jazeera or Al Monitor, when available on similar topics, tend to delve into the human element and the internal political implications within the involved nations, often highlighting the socio-political stresses beneath the surface of conflict. While specific Al Jazeera or Al Monitor reports on this particular incident were not immediately available, the BBC's in-depth investigative journalism here aligns with the spirit of seeking nuanced, human-centric accounts that might otherwise be overlooked by a purely operational reporting lens. These testimonies paint a picture of a system struggling to maintain control through coercion, a strategy that is unsustainable in the long run and carries immense ethical and strategic costs. The so what here is a fundamental challenge to the perceived strength and moral authority of the Russian military, suggesting that its operational capabilities might be undermined by its own internal brutality. Today's key updates highlighted the grim realities facing Russian soldiers in Ukraine, alongside significant geopolitical shifts in Panama and rising tensions in Beirut. The global stage remains dynamic, with ongoing conflicts and evolving trade dynamics demanding close attention. For the next 24 hours, 2 items on our watch list merit particular focus. First, monitor any official reactions from Moscow or its state media regarding the BBC report on soldier executions. The nature of their response or lack thereof could indicate how Russia intends to manage internal dissent and external condemnation moving forward. Secondly, observe the rhetoric from both Hong Kong and Panama regarding the control of the canal ports. Any further diplomatic escalations or economic countermeasures could signal a widening dispute with significant implications for global maritime trade.